So this video is a little bit different. The setting and what I will be talking about today. So I'm in this room. It's part of my apartment complex, and I felt like this room was very fitting because the atmosphere is it's interesting. This is a very old room. This building was built like 150 years ago. This town has a lot of history. Right across the street from my apartment is a library, and in the basement of that there is the Underground Railroad. I live in northern Ohio, so you know it was pretty prominent in here and in Oberlin, which is a town that's close to me. It's really cool to have that kind of environment here. And in this room specifically, if you don't know who Frederick Douglass is, he was a black man that escaped slavery in Boston, and then he traveled around the Midwest on train to give speeches about slavery. And he went through my town and gave a speech. And he gave a speech in this room right here. And I felt like this was an appropriate setting to use. The reason why he had one here was because the apartment that I live in, including this part here, was a place where local intellectuals would gather, and they talk about books that they've read, and they talk about society. And I thought that was really cool how much character is in this building and in this room specifically, because he gave a speech in this room and I felt like it was really cool. So I wanted to make this video in here because, you know, why not? It's a very cool atmosphere to have. The premise of why I'm making this video is to talk about why I am not going to continue making these self-help type videos anymore, and I'm going to focus more on projects, and because I love filming these things, but they're very basic to edit, and even though it's fun, I feel like I want to challenge myself more and work on actual projects instead of just talking to the camera. And there's a lot of reasons why I want to ease off on that train. When it comes down to it, manipulation. When I say the word manipulation, what I want to do is I want to sever this connection we have to this word. I want to sever it from emotional attachment. You know, manipulation is not per se a negative thing, it's not a positive thing. And for the sake of this discussion, I'm going to use the definition of manipulation to be averting awareness away from awareness itself. So a distraction of sorts. So that's what I'm going to say is a manipulation. Those are the intentions with it, so don't take this as a way of me putting down self-helpers that are on YouTube and the conscious and spiritual community that is around on YouTube. I feel like these videos, and not just from me, even though I am included in this. Right now, I'm included in this. But all these spiritual, conscious people on YouTube are manipulating you. Including, like I said, right now. That's what I'm doing. That's what you are doing watching this right now. It is taking you away from being with it all and focusing on me saying this stuff. That's not fair to do. I feel like there's a balance of theory and doing, because I feel like you need some theory in order to transcend yourself, in order to attain this higher state of consciousness, but you can't do that if you're constantly watching self-help people on YouTube, if you're reading books, if you're watching lectures, if you're taking classes. Yeah, these things can definitely help you. I don't think these are a bad thing. But it's so easy to get carried away with just watching videos or reading books and not implementing what you're learning into your life, because the learning isn't just this mental masturbation of, oh wow, this is a really cool thought, this is something that feels really good to think about and it's really interesting, and that's great. It's a catalyst, because without this type of connection it would be hard to see the big picture. of why consciousness work is important. So I think it's a balance that's very important. And when it comes to getting your information out, like for me, in order to, if I wanted to help people all the time with this kind of stuff, then I would need to market myself, which I honestly kind of do already. I do that on Instagram. I don't do it much on YouTube because I don't make a lot of content right now. So I don't really do it here. But Instagram, you know, I try to keep in mind what time I post. I try to keep in mind what does well with people. Posts that I do, you know, what type of photos that I put up, how people react to it, you know, the interaction I get from people, and it helps me exploit that. Marketing has this very deep problem of manipulation. In order to market yourself, if you're trying to make it with your own business or something, you are manipulating people. And see, this is why I don't want to make this a negative thing, because it's not a negative thing. And if you're going to make content that is specifically to spirituality, specific to consciousness, you have to acknowledge the fact that you are manipulating people. You need to tell people, look, I don't know everything. I don't help. There's not much that I do know, because true knowledge isn't something out here to an extent. This is a part of the whole. And you cannot teach anybody this. It's an experience. Can you help transcend people? Of course you can. And that's why this is a great thing. But at its core, you're going to constantly contradict yourself. You're going to be a hypocrite. You are manipulating people at its core. And you can't get around that, regardless of whether it's good or bad, because fundamentally it is manipulative. Of course, intentions are important. And I don't think any of these, well, I mean, I don't know many of these people that like make these channels on YouTube and have videos about consciousness and spirituality and stuff. You know, I don't know these people, so I can't sit here and say that their intentions are pure or anything, because I just don't know. But, you know, I don't think they're terrible people at all, you know? Because, like, spreading this message, if you're going to spread anything, is great. But building up a channel on YouTube or building up a page on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter or whatever is extremely manipulative, and it takes you away from this experience of being with it all. And it's just so funny because as I am talking about this, I am contributing to the same thing. But I know that the reason why I'm talking about this is because it's so vital. It's so vital to balance theory and doing. The only way to learn something is to notice a change in behavior. Because true knowledge isn't sports. It's not books. It's not authors. It's not different philosophers. It's not science. It's not psychologists. It's you can't explain it. I feel like throughout the spiritual conscious community here on YouTube, there's not enough discussion about how even this is manipulation. You know, like, it's weird because if you genuinely did that, there'd be a point where you'd stop making these kind of videos. Because how much can you talk about an experience that can't be talked about, can't be explained, can't be imagined? You can't, because this is, whatever you imagine, whatever you think, is part of this part and not the entire big picture of reality. So it limits you. And I feel like this needs to be acknowledged, and that's why I'm gonna stop making these type of videos, because I made a video like a week ago, and while I'm editing it, even when I started making these kind of videos, when I started editing it, I realized how much I was contradicting myself, and how like half the things that when I was rewatching and editing it, half the things I said I didn't really agree with anymore, even though I had just started editing it later that day. And I made a video last week, and almost the entire video I kept going back on myself because I'd catch myself. I realized that I was contradicting myself because I'm like, oh, think this certain way, do this certain thing. But like, who am I? Who am I to tell people how to live their life? You know, because there's no right or wrong way to live life, because fundamentally, we're selfish, because in order for the self to be here, there needs to be self-preservation. You need to eat, you need to drink water. For most people, you need to kind of socialize, you know, keep your sanity, you know? So, who am I? Who is anybody to tell you how to live your life? Now, there are ways to become aware of being selfish, and then you can do your best to be as selfless as possible. I just feel like it's unfair to constantly make videos about information you've gathered from other people, from books, from experiences. I don't feel like it's appropriate for those that know that you only can have this type of experience and you can't explain it. How can you consistently go about it and make these videos all the time when you know that, like, at its core, these aren't doing anything besides pleasing the mind? And like I said, that's part of it. But when you realize the big picture of it, it doesn't matter. Because even when you're in this kind of mode, when you're having this type of experience, theory doesn't matter anymore. Theory is gone. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at that point. You're out of that. So yeah, I could go on and on about this because it's really interesting. Because the universe is magic. It's genuinely pure, literal magic. Not just the fact that we are here and we're able to be aware of it and experience it, but the fabric of it itself is mind-blowing. The non-duality aspect. No, see, I gotta stop. It's so easy. See, these traps are so easy to fall into. You start talking about this kind of stuff, you want to explain more about fun, cool things you've learned. Like I did with explaining this room when I first began the video. Does that information matter? Fundamentally, no. Not at all. Nothing I've said has. But is it still something interesting to just keep in mind? Is it just interesting to ponder? Of course it is, and there's nothing wrong with that, as long as you keep that balance there. But it's not talked about enough. It's not talked about enough to just sit in silence, close your eyes, disconnect, and become all of it. Infinite. Become absolutely infinite. Because science can't explain this. Science can't explain this. No matter how far in the future we get, science will never be able to explain reality. Because in order for science to do that, science needs to show you something, right? Because a lot of science is based on seeing data, seeing documents, seeing experiments, right? So how can you learn about reality when, in order to do so, science must use it to explain it? You can't do that. It doesn't make sense. Science fundamentally will never be able to explain this. And religion can't to an extent either. There's a lot of mysticism with religion, and I feel like the balance between science and religion is good to have that balance of this mysticism, but then also like, you know, these things about physical reality we can measure and manipulate. And, you know, that itself is magical. And you can't explain this. You can't. The more I talk about it, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what I'm telling you. Because all that's going to matter is the experience that this can lead for you. So I think I'm just going to end that there, because like I said, there's not much you can talk about this. But I hope you guys take something from this and use it as an aid and focus on yourself more than watching self-help videos or documentaries or lectures. Keep it in balance, but keep in mind how fucking vital it is to just practice what you're learning. It's so easy to sit in an armchair and think, and that's a great thing. I do that so often, and it drives you up the wall because there's too much theory. When you don't balance the two and one overtakes the other, if you do a lot of just thinking, you're gonna go nuts, and if you do a lot of doing, you're not gonna get that fulfillment. You know, you need to balance the two. You need to figure out why you're doing some things, and yeah, do them for the right reasons. But don't listen to me. Do this thinking and research for yourself, within yourself, because that's the only place you're gonna find answers. So I appreciate you guys watching, and I will be making more like edit stuff. I have a few projects that I'll be working on over the summer. So I'll probably be posting on this channel more, but I'll be posting more artistic edits and not just this. So I appreciate your time very much so, because time is incredibly important. Yeah, sorry for taking you out of it, because you could totally be with it all and be out of this mental prison and turn it into a forest. Tear down the walls and create lush magic. And until then, my friends, don't forget those nature baths and prana breaths to keep you grounded in the present moment. Peace, guys.